I'm very pleased to welcome to the stage Dirk Ahlborn from Hyperloop.
It's a bit distracting.
But okay, there you go. Good morning. So, my name is Dirk Ahlborn, and I'm the CEO of Hyperloop Transportation Technologies. And we always say we're transforming transportation at the speed of sound. So, who here knows what the Hyperloop really is? I'll test you guys after. For everybody else, we have a little video here that shows you how it started and basically wraps up the first couple of years, and then I go a little bit more in detail. So enjoy.
America's always been a nation of doers. We build things, we take risks, and we believe that if you have a good idea and are willing to work hard enough, you can turn that idea into a successful business.
Billionaire philanthropist Elon Musk has hinted at a new high-speed transport system that could put planes and trains out of business.
I have a name for it, which is called the Hyperloop.
So what's Hyperloop? Mr. Musk's plan: move people using a massive vacuum tube combined with a magnetic levitation system. Kind of like a Jetsons tunnel?
It's something like that, yeah.
Here's how he teased the idea in May at an All Things D conference.
It's a cross between a Concorde and a railgun.
It's called the Hyperloop. It's a system of giant suspended tubes. Riding within are capsules carrying people or freight travelling on cushions of air at speeds of up to 1,200 k's per hour, or roughly 1 kilometre every 3 seconds.
A tube that would be on pillars from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and inside there would be capsule cars that would be rocketed forward up to 700 miles an hour, and that there would be a fan on the front. Elon Musk basically says that this is the way of the future.
How would you like something that can never crash? It is immune to weather. It goes 3 or 4 times faster than the sort of bullet train, and it would cost you much less than an air ticket.
It will only cost to build this $6 or $7 billion. Compare that to the $65 billion for the current high-speed rail plans for California. He believes this is a viable, valuable alternative for mass transit between these two destinations.
Could something like the Hyperloop actually be the answer to super-fast, environmentally friendly, high-speed travel between our busiest cities? So the gauntlet has been thrown down. A design document for a whole new, super-cool way to travel. The only thing now, will someone pick it up and make the Hyperloop a reality?
There are some companies that are forming to try to make the Hyperloop happen, and I encourage them. I think that's great.
Tesla founder Elon Musk proposed this new technology called Hyperloop, and it's being developed right now in Playa Vista, here in this hangar behind me.
The only resistance would be the air in front of the capsule, which we move to the back by using a compressor.
Company Hyperloop has teamed up with the students to create this tube technology that's designed to connect cities up to 400 miles apart.
Dirk Ahlborn says it's safer and more efficient than the railroad.
Well, the system is completely computerized. So you optimize the system, and then you actually have the humans to monitor it. In railroads, most accidents were all human factors. Plus, a lot of the derailments are actually happened because something's on the track. So we're in a closed system. We're completely managed by a computer system. There's no human factor that can actually create those issues. We actually plan on seeing the first Hyperloop very, very soon starting.
Can you imagine and walk us through what it might be like to travel at the speed of sound?
It's not going to be much different than sitting in an airplane, actually. Obviously, for us, it's very important to make it as good of an experience as possible. So
the race is on. Elon Musk's vision for a high-speed passenger pods known as the Hyperloop is one step closer to becoming reality this morning. One of the known companies competing to capitalize on Musk's proposal, announcing today it has struck a deal with landowners in Central California to build the first full-scale Hyperloop along a 5-mile stretch along I-5, with construction set to begin in 2016.
Let's bring in Hyperloop now appears one step closer to reality. Starting next year, that theory will turn into a groundbreaking in Quay Valley, Kings County off of I-5. A developer there has just committed a big chunk of his private land toward the project. It's a 5-mile loop that would take visitors through a planned entertainment district.
There's going to be a test track. Elon Musk has announced that he's going to build a small-scale test track. It's a necessary step for us to be building a full-scale version, and Quay Valley is a sustainable model town of the 21st century, so it's a perfect fit. They're expecting over 10 million visitors per year, so we will actually be able to generate revenues very, very fast. Make sure that the people that have been helping building the company and this technology are able to participate in the investment and the fundraising and the upside of the company.
With their contributions to Hyperloop, these students from around the world now have stock options in the company. But they say they're not in it for the money.
As a student, I start to feel like I'm in part of some great career that might change the world.
Will the Hyperloop kill the railroad?
The Hyperloop is going to do to the US what the railroads did in the 1800s. So it will change the way we live. It's possible today, it's based on existing technologies, and it's the right time, it's the right moment to finally get something doing like this.
Is it visionary? In 30 years' time, will you and I be sitting on our rocking chairs going, well, we talked about it then, and he did it?
Do you think this is possible? This is not just...
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
For all those who said this is just a neat little thing to draw on a cocktail napkin, these guys are saying it will become reality.
All right. So those were basically the first 2.5 years put together in 4 or 5 minutes. So to reiterate, what is a Hyperloop? Imagine a capsule, like a train, filled with people of freight, hovering inside a tube and moving really, really fast, basically at the speed of sound, from one point to the other. Inside this tube, we create a low-pressure environment. So basically, we have vacuum pumps that are along the track, and they take the air out, so that the capsule, very similar to an airplane that goes into high altitudes, can go very fast with very little energy. So this is not like what you normally imagine in the bank where you get sucked, but it's actually much more similar to just a normal train, but inside a tube with no resistance, no air resistance. So the whole system is completely green. We use solar, wind, kinetic energy through regenerative braking, and in some climates even geothermal, to ideally, depending on the route, produce more energy than we're actually using. You see, one of the biggest problems in rail is actually profitability. Because we're using much less energy, if we're producing our own, our operational costs are very, very, very low. But why should we have a Hyperloop? This is why. Maybe not necessarily something not that bad in Singapore, but in LA, where I live, basically every single day. Traffic is one of the biggest problems that we have. We spend a lot of time in traffic. A lot of time that we could be productive, or maybe more important, be with the people that we actually care about. Actually, traffic is so important that based on where we live, we decide where we work, right? In LA, based on where you live, you decide who you date. Because if she lives on the other side of the city, it's not going to work out. And then we have this, Beijing on a sunny day. On a bad day, you can't see your hand in front of your face. So most people think this is a problem that they have in China and India, but in real, it's a problem that we have all over the world. Even in Central Europe, people are, on average, losing 15 months of their life thanks to pollution. So you die earlier. It's so important that, I mean, traffic is only part of that, but it's still so important that many governments around the world now are moving over to move transportation to a greener effort. The railroad industries, they're literally a dinosaur industry. They haven't changed much, if you think about it, right? We're still building old systems, very expensive, rather than building new ones that could be much better. So these are normal railroad tracks. The distance in between them is 1 meter 43.5. That's a standard. This is how today, in most places around the world, we're building rail. Anybody here know why? This is why. The Roman carriage. So basically, today, in 2017, we're building new infrastructure based on the butts of 2 horses. But innovation is so easy. Actually, if you would just enlarge it a little bit, which, by the way, at least some countries have done, you could actually transport more freight, more people, safer and faster. And I think we can do much more. So, as I said earlier, one of the biggest problems actually is rail and metro doesn't make sense. There is no rail line, no metro line in the whole world that's profitable. They're all losing money. If you think about it, it's actually incredible because they have been built by entrepreneurs and have made some people very, very rich. And yet today, they only work with government subsidies, your taxpayer dollars. Los Angeles, to give you an example, is making 76 cents for each person that takes the metro. And $2.50 are coming from the taxes. So now some people say, okay, but in LA everybody takes a car, and that's correct, but even New York loses 82 cents per passenger, which is $2.2 billion every single year. Germany subsidizes a rail network with $22 billion per year. So that's a big problem all around the world. But how would our lives change if we would have a Hyperloop? Well, one of the big problems we have as well are airports. We're building more and more because they're overflowing. They're fairly close to the city. Now, you can connect these airports and they can actually become terminals, right? One huge airport. We can build them much further out, maybe 150 kilometers outside of the city, and still be there within minutes. When we talk about freight, we can have freight from Asia to Europe or the other way around within hours rather than within weeks. In some countries, we're able to deliver inside the whole country from one central warehouse within 1 hour. But this is probably where most people are getting excited about. You can live wherever you want. You can live in one place and work in another. We can build satellite cities much further out with cheaper housing. If you want to buy a house in LA, for example, where you don't risk to get shot in the front yard, you have to spend at least $1 million. So here, developers can buy cheaper land much further out, connect it with a Hyperloop, pay for it through the difference in real estate value, and now you can buy a house somewhere else and be within 10 minutes in the city center. So the evolution here, the revolution, is as big as literally what happened with the railroads. But how are we doing this? So when we looked at the feasibility, we found out the technology is actually not the problem. The technology has been around for quite some time. We know how to build pylons, we know how to build pipes, right? You can see them all across the world. We know how to create a vacuum inside a tube. This is a picture of the CERN Hadron Collider in Switzerland. And the pressure used here is actually 100,000 times lower than the one we're using. So it's much more difficult. And the company that's responsible for that pressure is actually part of our team. Alternative energy, so using solar, wind to power, is a safe bet. It's very similar to a silicon chip, right? It's getting better and better every single year, and cheaper, which is important as well. So today we know in California, for example, that we can cover our complete energy costs just with solar. But we know that in 3 years, that's even going to be better. But we're doing something else, a little bit different. We're building a company in a completely different way. I'm sure some of you are fairly young, so you might actually not know these companies. They all have something in common. They're all failures. Then there's these companies. They all have something in common as well. All of these companies, at one point of their history, were in trouble and incorporated something called crowdsourcing. See, some of these companies have more than 50% of the innovation coming from the outside. Lego, for example, was almost bankrupt. They switched the CEO, the new CEO incorporated crowdsourcing, and today it's one of the most successful toy companies out there. Still today, if you have an idea for a Lego product, you can submit it online. If it gets enough vote, management actually will take a look at it. But when it comes to trains, metros, this is where it normally happens, behind closed doors, right? You hear they're building something somewhere, it might cost this, and that's kind of like the maximum that you might hear about it. Well, we do something that we call crowdstorming. So we work with the community, you, the people that are there, our community, basically the whole world. And we ask questions. You see, we have the possibility to build a transportation system the way it should be done in 2017. Because if I take a bus, a train, or, even on a plane, I have to deal with technology probably like most of you here every single day, and always like, this can be done better. There's no reason to check my boarding pass 15 times while I'm going to the plane, right? So you need to question everything. If we would build a transportation system now and nothing would have existed, how would we do this? What would be the best way of making money? What would be the business model? Is a ticket still the best way of generating income? Do we need a ticket? And not only do we need a paper ticket, but you see, if we find a way to make money, the more the passenger rides, then the ticket actually becomes negative. Then you use a ticket to regulate demand. What if transportation is the marketing and you actually monetize on the time? Then passenger experience will be getting much better. It's not anymore about the space because they actually want you to spend more time. And I'm thinking about something like, if you compare to Google or Facebook, which are very profitable, and then you have the transportation companies which are losing a lot of money, but you're actually spending more time in transportation than you do on Google or Facebook. Or things like, if you look at our infrastructure, I see that we spend a lot of money on pylons, to give you an example, that holds the tubes up. If I would tell you, here are 300 pylons, what are you going to do with them? And it's just a question that gets you the answers. And some of them are crazy, some of them are genius. It doesn't really matter. All it matters is asking it. Things like, let's make them into beehives, or let's use them for vertical farming, right? So, again, we need to change. We need to build something that integrates perfectly with all the existing modes of transportation. So if we build a Hyperloop, and now you can move very, very, very fast, let's say Los Angeles to San Francisco in 36 minutes, but it still takes you an hour and a half to get to the station, I haven't changed your life. We need to integrate. So we spent a lot of time on how do we monetize, how is the experience better. One of these are the virtual windows, for example, which is a project that we have inside where we, well, you can see it for yourself, but we're using normal screens. Well, they're a little bit special, but mostly they have head tracking that see where you're looking and simulate a real window. You see, we don't have windows in the Hyperloop because we're inside a tube, but even imagine the subway, right? Now you can actually go through Terminator Land, Jurassic Park, Game of Thrones. It opens up a completely new world of content, experience content. For you, it's an experience, and for the transportation company, it's actually a way of making money. We have a community of over 60,000 people all around the world that we crowdsource with. We have a team of roughly 800 people. Most of them are actually working for stock options in the company, and 40 companies that are incentivized in the same way. We have offices in LA, in Barcelona, in Bratislava, in the Emirates, and we're opening up an R&D center in Toulouse. Some of the partners that we have on board that are, again, as well, working in stock options for the company are leaders in their fields. Leibold, as I said earlier, is the inventor of the vacuum pump. Atkins is one of the largest construction consulting firms that is known. We license technologies from national research labs. But why are we doing it this way? Why are we using crowdsourcing? Why are we working in this completely different way? See, when most people hear about the Hyperloop, they think of Elon Musk. Turns out, it wasn't his idea. We have been thinking about traveling inside a tube for much, much longer. I think the first time was Jules Verne's son. And one of the first attempts was actually as early as 1870. And when I say attempts, they actually built a station and a track and moved people. It was a pneumatic subway in New York. The goal was to connect New York and San Francisco underground. If you have questions, they didn't make it, but they tried. The first patent for a train inside a vacuum was done in 1904 by Robert Goddard, one of the most well-known rocket scientists of his time. In the 60s, the Secretary of Transportation of the US was quoted in Popular Science that tube travel will change the way Americans live and travel. And they actually had 2 projects that they were working on with government financing. The Jetsons had the same idea. In the 90s, there was a project called Swiss Metro in Switzerland, actually very similar to what we do, but underground tunnels, low-pressure environment, and big maglev trains. Completely feasible. The Simpsons. And then there was Elon Musk. So when Elon Musk came up with the idea, I was part of a non-profit incubator that was funded by NASA, and we were working on a new way of building businesses. You see, you do everything online, right? You get your groceries, get your dry cleaning, you find your boyfriend, girlfriend online. In America, you can even get divorced online. But when it comes to building a business, it's very much offline. It's you with a friend, drinking a beer in a bar, writing something on a napkin. You're not using the online world. So we are building something where we would connect people that are passionate about the same thing. What if you can find these people? What if you have 10, 50, 100, 1,000 people that are passionate about the same thing you are, that give you their ideas, their honest opinion, their contacts? You can build a better company. So we built this platform, and Elon was out there and said, I'm too busy, I have this idea, I'm too busy to work on Tesla and SpaceX, I would like someone else to pick it up. So looking at the past and seeing that all these projects had failed, and mostly because they were relying on one company They were relying on one government. It was very clear we needed to do something different. We needed to do more than just build a company. We needed to build a movement. I think actually, by the way, every company should be a movement. But we were successful. Today, there's a lot of different efforts out there, and all of them are moving forward. So it's exactly that. It's a movement. You're hearing about Hyperloop everywhere. But when are we going to see the Hyperloop? Well, as I said, the technology is ready. We are ready to build. We have worked over the last 3.5 years now to get to this point, and version 1 is ready. There's going to be a version 167. And we just announced something a couple of weeks ago, so if you haven't seen it, here it is.
Our dream of creating the next breakthrough in transportation takes a big step forward today.
Carburis is a consolidated leader in the structural composites world with over 15 years of experience in developing and manufacturing structural composites. With over 1,000 employees, 8 manufacturing plants, and 5 engineering centers, it is the perfect partner for HTT to capitalize on this knowledge and become one of our great partners.
This is a fascinating project for us, and we will show our expertise, our technology around the world.
Using passive magnetic levitation and a low-pressure tube, we are building a safer, more efficient way to move people forward. 3 years later, after countless designs and thousands of hours, we're turning our dream into reality. We're building the first full-scale passenger Hyperloop capsule in the world. So we just put the first full-scale passenger capsule into production. It will take roughly a year until it's done. After that, it will go into our research center in Toulouse for integration and optimization. So the biggest challenge that we have in making the next steps is actually regulations. You see, innovation goes very fast. Money is easy to find, and actually through our model, as I explained to you earlier, money doesn't really matter. You can do big things with just mostly passion. But of course, we all have, if you're in a new territory, you need to deal with governments. So we work with governments all across the world to make this happen. We have several projects, several feasibility studies in place. In Quay Valley in California, for example, we filed our building permits. We did some mapping and surveying of the land. We're now in the process of doing our environmental study. And Quay Valley is a model town of the 21st century. So they're building a completely new city. But it's also an entertainment district. They have 3 resorts, a theme park, a shopping center. So we are actually going to be able to move 10 million people a year there. We signed an agreement with the government in Slovakia, in Europe, and are working on a local project in Bratislava. In Abu Dhabi, in the Emirates, we're doing a feasibility study between Abu Dhabi and Al Ain. And the Sheikh, Falah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, is actually part of our team. He's our official sponsor, if you want so, our supporter. And, well, we'll see. There's a lot happening there, definitely. Brno, we're doing Bratislava, Brno, and Prague as a feasibility study. In Toulouse, we have been given a building and land from the government to build our R&D center, which will start later this year. And that will actually have a small track as well, where we can work on the future versions. And we just announced I think a couple of months ago, a feasibility study in Indonesia, actually several. So Indonesia, as you know, has one of the biggest problems in traffic in the world, definitely. So you see, when we started, a lot of people said this is not possible. So this is basically the answer that we're giving to those people. I believe that if someone tells you that you can't do something, it just means that they haven't figured out how to do it. It doesn't mean that you can't figure it out. Again, our model is very unique, and we're actually working with several schools now to hope to teach it, because especially when I talk to young entrepreneurs, I think it's important to understand you don't need money to do big things. What you need is a community. Money comes if you show progress, if you show passion, and if you're working on the right. A lot of the times you hear about all these big funding announcements. It's actually much more important that you ask for help, that when you meet someone and they say, your idea is so awesome, you tell them, hey, why don't you join me, right? So we wanted always to show that you can do things in a different way, and that's exactly what we're doing. So 3 years from when we start construction, we plan on announcing the first commercial line within the next 3 to 6 months. That's when you can use the Hyperloop, and of course, you're all invited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dirk Ahlborn from Hyperloop.